This map tracks active global conflicts based on recent data from researchers at Sweden's Uppsala University. By the end of 2025, there were 65 active wars burning worldwide. We have not recorded an interstate conflict rate this high since the close of the Second World War. The diplomatic tools designed to manage these crises are failing. Mediated ceasefires are collapsing within days, and international aid frameworks are consistently missing their funding targets. Fast forward to June 2026. The breakdown of global stability is playing out right now across 3 distinct geographic battlegrounds. By examining the ground-level data from these 3 separate wars, we can see exactly how the modern world order is failing to contain the violence. On June 11th, a fragile diplomatic ceasefire in the Middle East officially collapsed as U.S. forces launched fresh overnight strikes against Iranian cities, including Karaj. This timeline illustrates how rapidly the region destabilized. A joint U.S.-Israel decapitation strike on February 28th removed Iran's supreme leader. A ceasefire brokered by Pakistan in April held for roughly 2 months, until deteriorating entirely on June 10th. Prior to the renewed bombardment, explicit threats were issued from Washington. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated Tehran would be hit hard if military exchanges continued. Look at this map of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's tightest and most vital oil transit routes. Following a blockade here, energy prices spiked globally, which drove domestic inflation in the United States above 4%. When a regional power controls a critical resource choke point, local military actions create immediate, unavoidable financial consequences thousands of miles away, regardless of political promises made at home. Meanwhile, in Eastern Europe, the war in Ukraine is in its 5th year, and the front lines have largely frozen into a brutal, static trench system. This counter tracks the massive human cost of that frozen map. According to Ukraine's military, Russian personnel losses have now reached 1.37 million men, with over 1,100 casualties recorded in a single 24-hour period. As the death toll mounts, political support in Washington is fracturing. President Trump has significantly reduced financial aid to Ukraine and publicly placed blame on Kyiv for contributing to the start of the war. The European theater demonstrates the fatal flaw of prolonged attrition. Massive defensive alliances rarely break from decisive battlefield defeats. They crack under the slow exhaustion of industrial capacity and international political will. Away from Western media coverage, a 3-year civil war in Sudan has created the most severe humanitarian disaster on the planet. This graphic breaks down the lethality of the crisis. 33 million people require immediate assistance, while armed drone warfare killed at least 880 civilians in the first 4 months of 2026, accounting for 80% of all non-combatant deaths in that period. The international response has largely collapsed. Global aid is only 40% funded, and recent cuts by the U.S. administration forced the closure of over 60% of emergency civilian food kitchens. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk explicitly warned that the world is on notice as this violence escalates. Researchers confirmed that global conflict fatalities in 2025 reached their highest level since the 1994 Rwandan genocide, driven massively by the death toll in Sudan. When a massive humanitarian disaster occurs in a region that lacks immediate strategic or economic value to Western powers, systematic mass casualties can proceed unchecked by the international community. Economic contagion radiating from the Middle East, alliance fatigue stalling the lines in Europe, and deep international apathy allowing mass casualties in Africa. As the researchers at Uppsala University warn, these 65 active conflicts are testing the absolute limits of global stability. Policy decisions made in world capitals over the coming weeks will determine whether these isolated fires merge into a larger systemic collapse, or if they can be forced into resolution. The post-Cold War order is fracturing. Navigating what comes next requires cutting through the noise, looking directly at the hard data, and paying absolute attention to the consequences of foreign policy.